This video is about my book Heisenberg-Kepler Wavefunctions at Quantum Speed of Gravity C cube. This book will explain in detail my potential discovery of frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism of celestial objects. This mechanism appears to provide a quantum direct link between Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and Schrödinger wave functions on one hand, and Kepler's second law and third laws on the other hand. This mechanism appears also to reveal that quantum gravity communication must operate at the square and cube values of the speed of light. The speed of light limit, as we know, remains valid for motions of objects with mass, but not for their gravitational communication. The first fundamental component of this frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism is the orbital frequency of captive celestial objects. Based on my potential findings, it appears that every captive celestial object, like a planet, is equipped by its Captor celestial object, like a star, with an orbital frequency denominated here as dc. For a captive, its orbital frequency is materialized by the division of the speed of light, c, and its orbital velocity, v, hence the equation dc equals c over v. Then there come the roles of the orbital frequency of captive celestial objects. Based on my potential findings, the Captor sets up a unique orbital frequency for a captive in order to determine the latter's orbital velocity, orbital radius, and orbital period, as shown in the present equations. Based on my potential discovered frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism, it turns out that, on one hand, the determination of the orbital radius of captive celestial objects is defined by the discovered equation R, as presented here, and on the other hand, the determination of the orbital period of captive celestial objects is defined by the discovered equation T, as presented here. The two set determinations of orbital radius and orbital period are operated constantly while the captive revolves around its captor. As my potential discovery went further, there appears to exist a quantum direct link from frequential orbital radius and orbital period of captive celestial objects to Kepler's second law. Kepler's second law states that for the same amount of orbiting time, the wedge-like surfaces generated by the sweeping of the Captor captive axle along the captive's orbit must always remain equal regardless of where the captive starts along its orbit. Based on my potential discovered frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism, its orbital radius and period equations R and T, and the logical extrapolation therefrom, the quantum makeup of this direct link appear to take shape as the two potential Schrödinger wave functions, the Captor's wave function operating along the Captor captive quantum axle, and the captive's wave function operating along its orbit. This is because my analysis and logical extrapolation therefrom has revealed that there can exist a possible quantum projection of the two set orbital radius and orbital period equations R and T of the discovered frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism as presented here. And this possible quantum projection is to separate Schrödinger wave functions, one for the captor and one for the captive celestial object, as shown in the present diagram. The propagators of the two captor of the captive wave functions are composed of a gravitational energy potential, Gm over c squared or Gm over c cubed, and a quantizer, aka orbital frequency, dc squared or dc cubed. When these two wave function propagators meet each other, each wave function collapses into a new position and a new momentum. The collapses get translated for both the captive and the captor. A new radial position and a new momentum has velocity. However, due to the captor-captive mass ratio in most cosmic scenarios, the captor's new position and momentum are very small and therefore negligible. The two captor and captive wave functions appear to obey Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. When the two wave function propagators meet each other, each of them becomes the observer of the other, and that causes the collapse of the latter's wave function. Based on my analysis, the quantum behaviors of captor and captive wave function propagators can directly explain the classical gravity behavior of the captive: high orbital velocity at perihelion and low orbital velocity at aphelion. While the said two wave function propagators always maintain the same velocity due to the same gravitational energy amount per time unit, represented by the value gm over c squared or gm over c cubed. The number of collisions between these propagators varies because it depends on the distance of the moment between the captor and the captive, therefore can be widely different. And finally, should my potential discovered frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism of celestial objects get validated, quantum gravity must operate at both the square value of the speed of light and the cube value of the speed of light too, as demonstrated in the two present equations. It turns out that the potential discovered orbital radius equation of the frequential orbital motion quantization mechanism, shown here via the letter R, is embedded inside the newly obtained orbital period equation, shown here via the letter T squared. By simply inserting R to replace S equation, we can see the emergence of Newton-induced Kepler-Third law equation.